Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Why does my quad freak out? Why is it doing the electric boogaloo? It's something other than flying. This is something that comes up, I think, almost daily on Facebook, and it probably is posted in various other places. So I thought I would cover it, and for experienced builders, this may be just a little bit of a refresher or a reminder to check these things. And I call it the big four, and one is your props. That's something we can check real easy at the field, but if the nose is faced away from us, the props of the motors by default will rotate in towards the nose and in towards the tail. And we need to check to make sure the high side is leading the rotation, and the high side is here, and that should be coming in. So the high side should lead the rotation. And the same can be said for the nose. Hopefully you can see the pitch. I use these intentionally. So the high side should be leading the rotation. Now, if you have bought a quad that was used, or you bought a flight controller that had been previously used on another build, something to check is for the motor rotation where it goes in towards the sides. That isn't something I plan to cover in this video. This is for the default configuration of BetaFlight. So we've checked our props. We're like, yep, I've got them on. They're all right. Okay, well, now we need to get a bit more serious. So let's take the props off. Typically, when you've built your quad, your flight controller has an arrow on it similar to this, and that points towards the front. But sometimes we need to rotate this board 180 degrees, or we need to invert it for our installation needs. And maybe you've done that, but you've forgotten. The quickest and easiest way to check is to just plug it in, load up BetaFlight. You can see I've got COM47 here. I'm on a Windows computer, so I'm going to connect. You can tell if you watch the image in the center here, if I rotate the nose up, the image rotates up. If I bank right, or if I bank left, if I nose down, the image on the screen is following what we see through BetaFlight. That tells us that the board is configured properly for flight. If you don't see it operating that way, you need to go down to the Configuration tab, scroll down to Board and Sensor Alignment, and change it. Like you can see in this particular case, it's already been changed 180 degrees. So the arrow is probably pointing towards the tail of this machine. So that's an easy thing to check. Now the next thing we need to check is, while we're connected to BetaFlight, let's go down to the Motors tab. And this will kind of knock out two things at the same time. What we're going to do is we're going to plug in a battery here. We're going to scroll down and check the slider to allow our motors to spin, and we're going to spin motor 1. Now what we're doing is we're checking to make sure motor 1, when the slider goes up, motor 1 actually spins, and we'll do that for motor 2, motor 3, and motor 4 as well. That checks to make sure our motor mapping from our ESC to our flight controller is correct, and at the same time we can check our motor rotation. Again, the motor should rotate in towards the tail and in through the nose by default. If you have something other than that, that isn't covered in this video. So let's do motor 1. We just ease it up a little bit. We get some spin. We put our finger. I like to put it kind of on the edge so I can feel the bell rotating. And I can tell that it's wanting to push my finger away, so it's rotating in. And I know that motor 1 is actually spinning motor 1 through BetaFlight as well. Then we do number 2 the same. Well, I can't really tell, so I think I need to speed this one up a little bit. So I can get, there we go. Now it's kind of, if I just relax my finger a little bit, it will just kind of drag it. So motor 2 is turning motor 2, and it's turning it in through the nose. That might be a little hot. Let's turn that down. So motor 3 is rotating in towards the tail, and the slider for number 3 did turn motor number 3. And finally, motor 4 turned motor 4, and it is rotating in towards the nose. One last thing, it's not covered in here, but I'll put a card in the top right hand corner. If you use the slider for motor 1, and motor 1 on the physical machine does not rotate, instead you get motor 2 or motor 4, whichever motor rotates, you need to remap your motors, and that card I've put in the top right hand corner will assist you in doing that. So pretty quick order, you should be able to sort this out. Now this doesn't cover one-offs. If you've got an odd ESC problem, if you check those things, I would suggest to double check them, maybe even triple check them. Because sometimes when we get hurry, or it's late at night, or maybe we're watching something on Netflix while we're doing this stuff, maybe we get a little bit distracted or confused, and we missed something. Let's cover one last thing. So let's say one of your motors isn't turning the right way. We need to change that. So I'm going to disconnect from BetaFlight. I'm going to connect with BL Heli. I had to cut away, the BL Heli app wasn't cooperating, but we got it going now. So I've connected with the BL Heli app through USB, and now I'm going to tell it to read setup. And we see it's loaded our firmware from our ESC and tells us our motor rotation. Let's say that motor 2 was spinning out, and that was causing it to do the electric boogaloo. Then we just click where it says reverse, we go to normal, we click right setup, and you saw there in the log where it said ESC, oh, I went too far, ESC2, 112 bytes written. That was the only change that we made. So now, if we disconnect here, and we go back to BL Heli, if I go to the Motors tab, I will find that motor 2. Yeah, it's rotating the wrong way now, so I'll have to fix that later. That's the basics of checking these things. It happens to all of us. There's no reason for anyone to be embarrassed that you missed something. You can build 100 quads, and the 101st one you may miss something like this. So again, remember, if your quad is doing some sort of crazy quad dance on the floor and it's not flying, check your props, check your motor rotation, check your flight controller orientation, and check that your motor mapping is correct. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please leave those in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.